Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to make yourself a cup of tea or hot chocolate if you want, because today we have very interesting stories, and one of them is a story about a woman who thought if her child goes to private school, he can do what he wants, and she got what deserved. Please subscribe if you haven't and I hope you'll enjoy it. So this happened back in 2017, it was a normal school day morning. I had gotten ready and was waiting for the bus. A bit of background first. The way the bus system works in our school is the driver cannot wait more than 5 minutes for one late pupil. So there was probably one of the youngest kids who used the bus. He was 5 years old. Quite an innocent kid whose mother usually escorted him to the bus stop. So we had waited at the bus stop for about 5 minutes already, and nobody was coming, so the driver began to move on. We had gotten way far from there when there were honks from a car tailgating us. Then the car overtakes us and slams on their brakes. Luckily the bus driver was able to slam on the brakes. Now everyone is just shaken up, we had almost crashed straight into a car. Guess who walks out? How dare you freaking leave my child, he is 5 for fox's sake. I have a freaking job and can't be freaking chazzing you to pick him. It is your freaking job to pick up my kid and take him to school. Is that so freaking hard for you to freaking do? Screaming and flipping the bus driver off. Freaking open this door and take my freaking child to school. The child meanwhile is just there shocked and surprised. I'm not sure if this woman picked the right space to almost run a bus load of kids off the road cause after barely long the cops were there. Sir, is there a problem here? Now the EM had a look of worry on her face, she knew she was in the wrong. Bus driver and EM tell their side of the stories. So ma'am, did you try and ran this bus off the road? The EM is not apologetic at all. Of course I freaking didn't, I just wanted the stupid freaking driver to stop. Okay ma'am, you'll need to come with us. Now this woman went from EM to freaking horrible parent. EM makes a break for her car leaving her child behind. Cop 1 then tases her. She was quickly arrested and put in the cop car. What was the worst was the kid was just there watching. Watching her mom curse at the driver, watching her get tased, etc. What was worse was the bus driver usually would stretch the 5-minute limit for everyone who was late. And he hated leaving a pupil behind. I think the lady ended up paying a ridiculous fine and doing a few months in the slammer. Mother of the year. She could have been responsible for a wreck, which would have had injuries or even fatalities, then she'd be on the hook for vehicular manslaughter, all because she was too late for a freaking bus. So I used to work for a video game store. I won't say which one, but they'll give you $1.50 for the rarest new game, while trying to sell a 2-year-old EA roster update for more than 1/3 retail. Yeah. That one. This story took place about 12 or 13 years ago. If the details seem suspect, blame the all-thinker, which has been through a lot in the span between then and now. The backstory, I worked there for about 3 months and had to move back out of town for school. This period in time lines up with the release of the Nintendo Wii, when you couldn't get enough of them in to satisfy demand, and I have stories about that for another day, believe you me, and when it became a thing for sad middle-aged, stay-at-home mothers to dump their kids' places and pretend to be the annoying witch quartet from Love in the City. You'd see them in the mall walking 4 abreast, impeding foot traffic and being super witchy about everything. Sometimes you'd see one sidle up to the store, dump her kids off, and back off before we could yell at her to get her kids. We always hated this because we were paid just a hair above minimum wage to do a sales job, not babysit temporarily abandoned freak trophies. Usually the kids were cool, but you did get the odd piece of crap kid. Where the story begins. Entitled Obese Kid, EOK, was just such a kid. He'd waddle in out of nowhere with a paper bag full of cheese slices and a can of something or other, plop himself down on the ground in front of the demoed ses, yank off his shoes and socks, and just eat cheese, play his own DS, get crappy about other kids playing the public used ses, and occasionally bother staff about the washrooms or buying him more pop, which he expected we'd just do out of our own wallets. First few times he was there for about an hour or two, then put his shoes, not his socks, which were disgusting, back on and back off elsewhere. We figured it was another temporarily abandoned kid. And then we started getting the phone calls. Welcome to, redacted, where, sales pitch. How can I help you? Is Eok there? Who? EOK. My son. Is he there? We don't have an EOK working here. Maybe try one of our other locations. No. He's there right now. I'm just making sure he's had his snack and gone to the bathroom. Apparently nobody there has been taking him when he needs to go, so he's been wandering home instead. What? Can I speak to your manager? I don't know what kind of a crap show you guys are running, but I worked in childcare for years, and when a child had to go, you dropped everything and took them to the washroom. Ma'am, do you think this is a daycare or something? My sister does it all the time at other mall when she and her friends go shopping, so yeah. No. Not a daycare. This is a place of business, not a childcare facility. Come get your kid. He's not bothering anyone. Just keep the other kids from getting up in his personal space, and he'll be fine. Hangs up. This continues every couple of days or so, usually with me fighting this lady on the phone about her kid and telling her to come grab her kid. One day I decide I've had just about enough of this crappy little crotch goblin treating the store I'm in like his own personal clubhouse and trying to get us to let him play games he hasn't paid for, which his mother kept berating us for not letting him do. We never saw her. He'd just leave his trash in his usual spot and waddle out. When the call came in, she just straight started barking orders and I was 100% done. He okay isn't here. His uncle came and got him. What? Yeah. Sandy hair. Mustache. White dude. Maybe about 5'9" or so. Said he was his uncle. Took the kid by the hand and made for the food court. You might catch them there if you're around. The line goes dead. 10 minutes later, a clone of God warrior lady trundles in with 2 cops, breath that could stop a diesel train and a wicked bad attitude. You gave my son to a child harasser. You're going to jail. Your son. The halfway brain dead little crap eating his way into an early heart attack over there. I thought he might be yours. Yeah. He's fine, but we're throwing him out of the store and he's not coming back. Ever. We are not a freaking daycare service, lady. This is a place of business. If he's not buying, he's not welcome. You want to ask my manager what she thinks of people dumping their kids in here? I'll go grab her. So you didn't hand a child over to a no, but I wouldn't know what any of these kids' relatives look like because they just get dumped here and picked up later. If you look after theirs, how is my son any different? Are you even a customer around here? I leave the shopping to his older sister. I don't shop here. I live across the street. So you drop him off. I leave him right here at the door, and it's never been a problem. Eventually, Cop 2 talks to the kid and finds out that he more or less throws a handful of cheese products and a can of whatever's in the fridge into a bag and wanders off on his own. Across a busy 4-lane street with a light entitled Freaks Love to Run, through a parking lot, and across the longest possible angle of the mall. The M keeps insisting that it's okay because none of the other kids in there have parents with them either, and if we didn't want kids hanging out, we wouldn't have video games everywhere. Things escalated once the cops, mall security drawn in by their fascination with real cops, several parents, a few adult customers, and the cute girl from the A&W, all told her that the mall at large and this store in particular were not responsible for the health, safety, and well-being of her child. Eventually, piece of crap dad, POCD, comes storming in. He tries to hand me a $5. I decline. He tries to pretend that I've always pocketed $5 to take care of his kid. I refute that and ask the cops to get me something to write out a statement on. POCD gathers his son and wife and tries to leave after shoving a few DS game boxes, all empty because we're not stupid, into his sweatpants when he thought his wife had everyone distracted. The cops follow them. 2 days later, POCD comes in mid-July, just after monsoon season around here, in a hoodie and sweatpants, trying to get a refund on all the games he thought he stole. I told him to try opening the boxes. When he realized his master plan to get cash back for returning games he thought he stole wasn't going to work, he tried yelling at me for selling him empty cases and demanded a refund. I asked him how having his kid around more often was working out for him, and he spat on the counter and stormed out. Never saw him or anyone else from his family again. How do people think this is acceptable? It still boggles me in the head thinking about this. I'm surprised you let it go as long as it did. I would have called the police for child abandonment. Maybe just a non-emergency line would have been sufficient. Background. Povo basically means poor, no money etc. You get the definition, and state school means a public school. Anyway, 18 who graduated from this school last year, the kid had the school uniform on. This happened to me while working my part-time job, Woolworths, for any non-Australians. It's the biggest grocery shop in Australia, so you do get them customers. This happened merely 4 or 5 hours ago. The cast. M. Me, EB. Entitled Brat, EM. Entitled Mother, S. Security, SM. Assistant store manager. Store manager wasn't working at the time, so he was controlling the store at that time. 1C. First customer, 2C. Second customer. So it's about 7:30 p.m.-ish, a pretty busy Tuesday night, and I was stocking up on the drinks as I turn around, and this 12 or 13-year-old EB starts clinging onto my roll cage stacked with drinks. Now, this kid is very small, but he had the new uniform that the school was overhauling starting this year, me obviously graduating. I identified that this kid was clearly in year 7, first year in high school in Aus for non-Australians, and the convo went like this. Sorry kiddo, I'm gonna ask for you to get off the cage mate, them boxes are pretty heavy and can seriously injure you if you stand around on them like that. Nah, mum said I could and I'm pretty bored. This kid literally sits down on the freaking rail end of the cage. Luckily, most boxes have been worked and the remaining boxes are even and won't budge. Despite the kid putting his full body weight onto the roll cage, he proceeds to pull out his phone to do whatever while sitting down on the cage. Now this is where it gets fun. Excuse me, why are you talking to my son? Sorry miss, but he can't sit on the cage like that, it could collapse and seriously hurt himself. He goes to a private school, so he does what he wants. Doesn't really mean anything as he can really hurt himself. You obviously haven't experienced something called privilege. I went to the same school, I graduated last year, can you just please not make a scene and do us a favor and get him off? At this point, a little bit of a crowd was gathering as she and her trolley blocked the aisle while speaking to me. Crap, stop lying, you're working here to earn money, you're a state school Povo, stop trying to be elite like us. Now, the ASM has heard the commotion and jumps in. Now, what this witch does is just ridiculous. The ASM moves the trolley himself, before introducing himself to allow other customers to move through the aisle, and it goes like this. Now ma'am, please calm down, what's the issue here? Your employee called my son a freaking brat because he didn't move out the way. I now only notice that EB is hiding behind EM. However, 2 customers to my rescue, who were obviously annoyed by EM and EB. What? No, this young man clearly and politely asked your son to get off the cage as a serious injury could occur. Stop making up crap lady, you've halted so many people up, please just shut up and move on. Oh, boy. Shut the hell up, your kids probably go to a Povo state school because you live off the pension. My husband is a $200K a year doctor, and I have the money and influence to bring you all down. My son will do whatever, whenever because he is above all of you. Everyone is stunned. We have security outside of BWS, beer, wines and spirits, alcohol store, which is located in the store, so the security man obviously heard it. She spots the man, and still has the nerves to go on. Put me in cuffs and I'll have you arrested. How much do you earn? Minimum salary security man, your parents also couldn't afford to put you through a decent education. Freaking state school Povos everywhere in the suburb, wonder why everyone is jealous of us. With no hesitation or words from ASM, me or anyone at all, S put her in cuffs. While being cuffed up, she didn't say anything, just heavy breathing with a big frown and red on her face, upon being taken outside as the police have been called. BB also follows the security man just behind his handcuffed mother. She was obviously swearing and cussing to everyone who eyed her off while she was being escorted. The commotion died, and everyone smiled and had a laugh. SM puts his hands on his hips and shakes his head while looking outside as the police car finally pulls up. Poor ASM, his duty to go deal with the final bit after 20 or 30 minutes. I asked ASM what the final verdict was. He smiled and said, "Do you reckon Mr. Loving Doctor can pay bail out a public disorder charge? I hope you enjoyed a decent read. I hope, well, it was intimidating being there at the time. I'll always look at it as a good laugh for those who work in retail. You do a great job, screw rude customers and double screw entitled freakwits." Should have allowed her son to do it. If he got hurt, his rich parents are more than wealthy enough to pay for any necessary surgery. This happened a while ago, back in high school about 3 years ago. I was walking to the bus stop with my buddy, whom we'll call Hans because of his sheer size, to go home, when I saw a child and his mother. The child was about 10 years old maybe. And the mother looked on in her 30s. They went in the bus alongside me and my buddy. I thought nothing of this at first. Now for some context, it was a rainy day, and the neighborhood where Hans and I lived in was kinda far. Normally a bus trip over there would take around 20 or 30 minutes with normal transit. But in rainy days, it could easily take up to 3 hours to get there. We also had our 3Ds to play some Monster Hunter and local connection. So we weren't going to get bored anytime soon. Dunno what's the plural of 3DS. So there we were, attempting to play some missions in G-Rank when the child came close to us. He started watching us play and asking some questions. Which was nice, since I personally like to show my skills to people, and he asked politely. So we started talking and we eventually exchanged friend codes. This was when Miiverse was still a thing, was when the mother started staring at us with an angry look on her face. We were fighting Stygian's Integer when the mother tapped my shoulder. Stygian's Integer was one of the hardest monsters in G-Rank, so we couldn't afford any distractions. That conversation went a bit like this: me, it is I, me. H, Hans, C, child, EM, entitled mom. Still staring at the screen. What is it? Why have you been ignoring my son? Sorry, we're busy. At this point, EM tried to snatch my 3DS, closing it in the process and breaking the connection. Hans had to abandon the mission because of that. I fortunately managed to keep it in my hands, and EM was now starting to witch at us, and C looked embarrassed because of that. Now, Hans is a powerful being. He looked fat, but all that flab was actually muscles. I learned this at PE class, and I knew that the volcano had awoken. Good thing it did. Visibly annoyed. Ma'am, the hell are you doing, and what is your right to scream at me? You ignored my son when he asked you if he could play. Mom, don't make a scene. You should listen to your son, miss, we didn't hear him. I don't care, now you give that Nintendo to my son. She seriously called it Nintendo. Ma'am, just leave us alone, we didn't really do anything. I don't care, just give it to me. She then tried to snatch the 3DS from my hands again for about 2 seconds because Hans decked her in the face. A bit before and during the Falcon punching to EM's face. Piss off. The other people in the bus were watching the scene unfold and didn't say anything about Hans hitting EM in the face. C was speechless, but he didn't look as sad as one would expect. EM was covering her face, moaning in pain. The bus hadn't been moving because of traffic, so EM and C could make a run for it. C was able to mutter sorry before going with his mother. We didn't see EM after that. The rest of the trip was kinda normal. We actually beat Stygian's Integer and got to our homes unscathed. Later, Hans and I were playing Monster Hunter 4 online, and, would you look at that, it's C. We greeted each other and started going in missions. He also said he was sorry for his mother's actions. He didn't even ask to play because he had left his 3DS at home. Which is why we exchanged friend codes. We kept talking and eventually we knew that EM was arrested because of another similar incident. This meant that C was living happily with his dad. Today, I'm still friends with C. Maybe he was thankful because of the punching, but I didn't want to dig into that further. Oh, well. I can't believe all these stories where people just try to snatch personal property away from someone and somehow they don't consider it theft. Glad that EM got a punch for her efforts. Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about a woman who became mad because OP protected her child from danger. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.